there's rather a lot on Keir Starmer's plate. We can talk about tariffs, incapacity benefit, but he's choosing today to go to Yorkshire to make a speech in which he's saying that the British state is flabby. He wants to cut waste, wants to cut civil servants, has sort of echoes of Elon Musk. You know, it seems as though the chainsaw is being brought out. Is this Operation Chainsaw, Jonathan Ashworth? Do you want to knock that one down?
No, this is about reforming the state, to use AI to improve the way in which the state delivers services to the citizen, making it easier, for example, to apply for your passport, your driving licence, for all the things where you interact with the state, and looking at how the central machine in Whitehall, all the civil servants themselves, can improve delivery in Whitehall as well. And look, you know, we've heard this earlier.
What Elon Musk was saying about the chainsaw?
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, but it is right to try and cut out waste.
Yeah.
Jonathan's think tank, Labour Together, it has been reported, refers to this as Operation Chainsaw, although I think Downing Street don't like that label. No, you probably don't like it either.
Because Downing Street, quite rightly, and the Prime Minister quite rightly will be saying that, unlike Elon Musk and all of these other characters, we believe the state, we believe Whitehall and public services can deliver improvements for the citizen. Elon Musk doesn't believe that. He wants to cut away the state, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't reform the state. It doesn't mean you shouldn't cut away at regulation if it's holding back infrastructure spend, for example.
So it's kind of like, state is good, but ours is bad right now.
Well, the state is good, but you should always be reforming the state to deliver better public services.
Kwasi can totally agree with this, because it sounds such Tory language, doesn't it?
It's totally. And what's going to happen is we've got a spring statement that the Chancellor will announce in 2 weeks' time. Before that, you're likely to have an OBR downgrade in terms of the growth figures. So they're just preparing the ground for what could be quite tough cuts in the spring.
So in what way? They'll be losing jobs?
Because, yes, so that all of that conversation... And we had Jacob Rees-Mogg, he was the Minister of Government Efficiency in the last government, and he was trying to find 66,000, lay off 66,000 civil servants. So they're not going down the numbers route, because obviously that will be very sensitive. But I think they're preparing the ground for reductions in spending, which the OBR will essentially force them to do.
What's striking to me is, I mean, Jonathan, we had austerity, we had 14 years of a Conservative government, local government has had huge cuts, social care had, you know, really, really difficult time, and then Keir Starmer says the state is flabby. I mean, why does he want to say that?
Well,
is it true? Flabby?
Well, the number of civil servants working for the state have gone through the roof since, under the Conservatives, actually, post-Brexit.
Post-Brexit and COVID.
That's a fact. But Conservatives did say Brexit was going to make us more nimble, and actually we recruited more people.
The big increase, I would argue, was COVID, the COVID pandemic, because you will remember that before that, the budgets were... they weren't balanced, but we're in control of public spending. After COVID, we spent something like $300 billion just to keep the economy afloat. Yeah. And as a consequence of that, taxes have gone up relentlessly. And now you've come to a point where taxes are so high, the Labour government will have to look at reducing spending. And that's the tricky thing for Labour.
But the problem is you're going to different issues, but when we're just momentarily looking at the statement, you've got two sort of what will feel to people quite conflicting words. You've got the state is flabby, but also overstretched. And if you're working in that, you're thinking, oh, God, you know, do you know what I mean? It feels like he's trying to win all ways there.
But lots of private businesses are really making use of tools like AI to improve the efficiency of their services. Let me give you an example, yeah? If you are the victim of a crime and you go and give a witness report to a police officer and they write it all down by hand, yeah? And that is how your witness report is recorded for a lot of police forces still. Police services still. Why not use AI? Why not speak it into like a dictaphone, if you like, and then use AI to transcribe it? That would be a very simple efficiency.
Although you'd have to have a civil servant or a police officer to check the AI. Yeah. My experience of AI is they never get it right. Can you imagine? Look,
well, it's improving all the time,
let's improve the system. You know, if only we'd had AI, we'd be able to assess disability claims quicker. We could assess visa claims quicker. We wouldn't have had a Windrush scandal because they'd have got it all right. You just wondered to yourself, actually, is it possible for technology to make what are actually quite fine, difficult judgments, which if you get wrong, the government's in a lot of trouble?
But the answer to that can't be just more civil servants. I mean, you know, both Labour and the Conservatives are trying to tackle the same problem, We've got lots and lots of people.
I'm in favour of using AI. I'm just wondering whether you get massive savings from it. Well, I mean, it might make things better, but I mean, in the short term, if you're going to get
productivity gains,
in the short term, if you're going to get the NHS and police and the courts to use AI well, how much investment are we going to have to put into computer systems? Is this going to save money this Parliament?
Well, I mean, you can use AI to improve a lot of diagnosis. It can spot cancers
and computers and the tech,
and it spots bone fractures much quicker within the NHS. So you should be embracing this.
Ed raised an important point. The fact that you're trying to transition to this stuff will have an additional immediate cost.
Yeah,
and so the benefit, which is a good thing, but in the long run, it's a good thing.
Public spending,
in the long run, it's a good thing, but you're going to have to put money in the short run to make the things work. That's the danger.
Is that right?
Well, I mean, you've got to... You do have capital investment budgets across different public services. And I know in the NHS now, AI is being rolled out for as a diagnosis tool, and there is evidence that it is better at spotting bone fractures than the traditional X-rays.
The question I'm asking is whether AI... I'm sure you're totally right, that for the long term, it's a really good thing to do. Is it going to solve this immediate dilemma, which is that they need cuts in public spending now? Does AI deliver cuts in public spending this year and next year? Or actually, do you need to spend in order to make AI work?
Well, let's see what the Prime Minister says today in his speech. Let's see what Rachel Reeves says in her statement in a couple of weeks.
They're going to cut numbers. I mean, I think that's... You can't get around that. You've got to reduce...
Which civil servants have you cut? Where's the flab?
Well, we'll have a drink afterwards and we can talk about that.
OK, fine.
Not necessarily, I don't think he necessarily meant individuals. No, but I think he meant...
wasn't asking for names. Where is this... I mean, it is true that we now have huge numbers of people checking kind of goods coming in and out of the country because
I looked at the numbers. So in 2016, we had something like 380,000 at the end of 2016 working across Whitehall. Last year, it was about 513,000. There are extra 130-odd thousand people. And what are they all doing? Are we doing more than we did in 2016?
Although, you know, that's a drop in the ocean of savings compared to the scale of the fiscal challenge.
No, but it's a start. And in terms of the machine, you've got to try and trim that.
I think I feel a bit jaundiced. For 30 years, every 3 years, you have a Prime Minister who makes a speech in which he says, I'm going to sort of use technology and sort out the state, and you think, OK, but really?
Well, these things do come along.
I mean, am I too cynical, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, these do come along.
Now you've moved to the think tank world. You're an optimist, ideas and change.
I don't think anyone's ever described me as an optimist. But, look, these things do come along. We worked on this stuff back in the day, back in the Treasury. We had the Gershon review. This is really getting into techie stuff now. But, look, it's right that you're always demanding efficiencies and good value from every pound of taxpayers' money.
Definitely.
Well, talking of efficiency and cuts, welfare. So Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, yesterday had to respond to questions put directly by Ed Davey about this. Ed, sitting right here, has been asking various members of the government all week about the principles of cutting those who can't work benefits. You know, could they guarantee that those who can't work because of disability will not be part of this freeze or effective cut? And because of this, Keir Starmer could be facing his biggest rebellion yet.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that most of your former colleagues and most Labour MPs didn't go into Parliament to cut benefits. I think for the Labour Party, it's a very difficult issue. Even we found it.
Did you go into politics to cut benefits?
No, I didn't.
So it's actually it's not just Labour colleagues.
But a lot of Conservatives, you will know, are very traditionally cautious about public spending and want to live within our means. And we want to grow the economy and reduce taxes. That's part of the Conservative philosophy.
Yes, but I think a lot of people are agreeing on all sides of the political fence that there could be a better way of organising welfare benefits. What everybody is concerned about is if you have a disability, that means you cannot work. You know, why can't the government guarantee that you won't lose what is already a quite hard thing to live on? Why can't the guarantee do that? What's their political motivation for that, Jonathan?
I mean, at the moment, we're still waiting to see what the government's actual proposals are. There's lots of speculation in newspapers. There's lots of kites being flown.
But the fact they're not ruling it out,
yeah,
people think that it could be ruled
exactly, and I could understand why that's creating understandable.
Although speculation in newspapers, this is not the newspapers making it up.
No,
this is newspapers reporting stuff they've been told, which
they've been leaked.
Then gets dismissed as speculation.
Right. Yes, which sometimes gets, rolls the pitch is the phrase that politicians use, but sometimes you get to the actual event and the bad thing that they think is going to happen is not going to happen. I'm not suggesting that, but we have to wait and see what is actually going to be proposed.
But this is the context that I was speaking earlier about the growth figures. Yeah. Because if they come in and they're much lower than they predicted, the OBR's figures last year, the government will have to do one of two things, either raise taxes or reduce spending.
And isn't this a dilemma?
That's the context. We're rolling the pitch for that.
There is a definite problem in the structure of the universal credit benefit, which essentially blocks people who say they want to work from accessing the help that would get them into a job. It is a benefit trap. I used to talk about this when I was the Shadow Welfare Secretary.
Because they're on that benefit, they can't get the access, otherwise they have to give up the benefit.
Because if you go on to the health-related bit of universal credit, you're too sick to work, or you might have a disability, once you're on that, you cannot access any support to get you into work, and you're on a different level of benefit.
So it's a categorisation.
It's a categorisation, and lots of people on that benefit actually say, I would like a job, the right type of flexible job. Yeah. Can you help me get a job? Can you work with me? And that does not happen in the system at the moment.
This goes to the heart of the dilemma. It's actually the same as we were just talking about with AI. And there's been a huge rise in expenditure on incapacity benefit for people who are not working over the last few years. The government's actually already got some billions of savings coming over the next couple of years. Rachel Reeves needs quick savings now for the fiscal rules. The trouble with the long-term reforms is they take time. Question mark, if she needs money now...
Well, that'll come, I think, through tax rises.
Well, or...
I mean, they're freezing the speculation.
The speculation is that she's going to cut personal independence payments, which are independent of whether you're working or not, but would mean a loss for people with extreme disabilities who can't work. And isn't that the issue which becomes acute for Labour MPs?
Well, the issue is this, though, and this is where the debate focuses. The overall numbers with different health conditions has not dramatically increased in the population. That's what all the NHS surveys suggest. Yet the numbers claiming this benefit have increased hugely over the last 4 or 5 years. So there's a mismatch between what the NHS is saying is going on about the overall health out there and what the benefit system is.
But the question I've asked ministers this week is, if you are a person with extreme disabilities who cannot work, would it be right to see your benefits frozen or cut?
Well, I mean, if you cannot work, you obviously need security and dignity from the system.
Support. But I would say no.
But the ministers coming on your programme...
You would say no to that.
But the ministers coming on your programme don't actually know what's going to be proposed when these proposals come out.
The ministers say, let me tell you our principles.
No, but they can't...
I say, is it a Labour principle to cut the benefits of people who can't work?
No, but let's be honest. We know how it works. A minister from the Department of Housing does not know what's coming from the Work and Pensions Department in a couple of weeks' time.
They don't know. Well, they say what their principles are, but they don't actually know the details of what's coming down the line. That's the issue. So for them to guarantee anything on a studio...
I don't think there'll be a rebellion for Keir Starmer if they are doing structural reform of the welfare state to get people back to work. But if they start cutting benefits for people with extreme disabilities... Isn't that a very difficult thing for Labour MPs to swallow?
This stuff is always difficult for Labour MPs, but you've got to look at the structures of this, and you've got to ask yourself, is it the right structure? I mean, I was reading somewhere the other day that and people may, write in and say I was wrong, because it's just what I read. A fifth of new cars sold in this country, a fifth of all new cars are going to people via the Motability Assistance on PIP. And this is one of the reasons, well, not the driver of the big increase, but there's a way in which the PIP system is now working, which does need to be looked at to ensure it is delivering the right level of support and dignity for people, but really understands why there's been this big increase in it in recent years.
But Ed's point is right, because all of these structural changes, in terms of the bottom line, in terms of how much money the government has, will have a much more longer-term issues. In the here and now, in the next year... it's very difficult for me to see where they're going to get the savings.
And I suppose that's the emotional dilemma, isn't it, for people outside the system, that the welfare system is there to catch you isn't it? It's to catch you in trouble.
Should be a safety net, absolutely.
In a short-term way, hopefully.
That's right.
You're not thinking it's going to be there forever. So you've got a risk sense to your short-term safety net. And the changes that are being discussed would lead to a long-term gain. So it feels like there's a tension in the whole purpose of the welfare state and what's being discussed.
But there always is, because as Ed says, you've got to spend money in the short run to change.
But what you're doing is you're risking people in the short run.
It's
not just about spending money. That's the thing, isn't it?
So, sure, but I think that what the Labour MPs will have a problem with is what you've identified as these cuts that are going to hit
the immediate thing is that if you have 2 weeks of speculation and nobody knows what's going on, what we know is, because we see it every day on this programme, there are thousands, tens of thousands of our viewers who are really worried because they keep reading that disability benefits are going to be cut and there's no clarity, and that is actually just very destabilising.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and it's why I've always argued that your welfare system should provide security and dignity for people who can't work, but proper support for people who want to move into work. And my issue with it at the moment is it's not providing that proper support. Look, I came into politics to lift people out of poverty and to campaign for decent jobs for people. I remember going to the Dole office with my dad in the 80s when I was a child, but I will never forget the haunted faces on the people queuing up in that Dole office. Yeah, being out of work when you want to get into work is not just about giving yourself a good income, it's about raising your hopes, your aspirations, your horizons. It's why supporting people to move into a good job absolutely has to be at the heart of this. But for people who cannot work, of course there has to be dignity and security.
But all of these things will be revealed, I think, by the time of the spring statement, because we're actually, in a way, we're kind of...
That's the end of the month, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't really know what's going on until the spring statement happens, and then all will be revealed, I think.
Okay.
Meanwhile, in the conversation about Ukraine, I mean, almost daily there's a lurch, a new twist. Front page of the Times, back peace or I'll ruin you, Trump tells Putin. I mean, having spent a couple of weeks having a go at Zelensky, Trump seemingly turning his focus on...
That's right. Well, look, I've said on this programme before, the way to understand Trump is a reality TV person. So there are always going to be twists and turns in the evolution of the story.
Of course, he and his advisors say that's negotiation.
Yeah, well, he would say that's a strength. Yeah, you're right. But I knew when he was being, bad cop to Zelensky, that there would come a time when he would turn on Putin. I think that was fairly predictable. But we have to just wait and see what the Russian response will be.
I suppose what appeals to people is the fact that he appears to just say what he thinks, regardless of where it is. Whereas the whole thing we were just talking about before, where the ministers on our programme can't answer because they don't know, it's not their department. Yeah. He gives the opposite of that, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he's in charge. I mean, he's running the show himself. He's the President of the United States. He doesn't really report to anybody. So, of course, he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, it is a rollercoaster. I mean, on the way in here, I was listening to the radio, and John Healey, the Defence Secretary, heard him. He put out a very strong statement saying, look, there's this ceasefire offer. The ball's now in your court, Russia. Let's get peace. So, look, let's hope we get peace, because this has been a devastating war.
And the other side of it, so we now know that we're not being excluded from the tariffs that were imposed on EU and Canada. They have come back with a counter-tariff. We haven't. Is that because we're still hoping to have some kind of trade deal? And is that likely, or do we just look a bit weak?
Look, I think that it's very... I think Keir Starmer's actually done quite well in the last couple of weeks. He's handled Trump, I think, with quite a lot of skill. And what he doesn't want to do is to suddenly say, actually, Trump is a bad guy, these are the tariffs we're going to retaliate with. I think he's being measured. He's trying to see whether there's any wiggle room. And I think we do want to open conversation.
What do you think of the tariffs?
Look, I'm not a tariff guy. I mean, I believe in free trade.
So Keir Starmer agrees with you?
Yeah, I think...
So he's saying what he doesn't believe in the hope that he'll get something out of it?
Well, look, so there are a couple of things.
It's quite hard.
What Trump is saying is, like, you're putting tariffs on our goods, so we're going to put them on yours. That's underlying what he's saying.
That's what the EU and the Canada already said,
Whereas you will know from your days in government that, that's not our approach. We generally are more kind of free trading. In some instances, particularly with China, I happen to agree with President Trump, because a lot of those Chinese goods are made by slave labour. They don't have the health and safety standards that a lot of workforce in the West have. And there is an argument that you should impose tariffs on countries where they don't have the same health standards or They use indentured labour.
I mean, it's had less coverage over here, but these tariffs are causing a few economic problems over in the US
Definitely.
for Trump. You know,
it's unstable.
Wall Street. I don't know where it was yesterday, but earlier in the week, Wall Street was you know, I was reading some banker in the US saying that we had lots of hope. We've now gone to despair. And if the American economy obviously plummets, that's going to have an impact on the global economy and us as well.
Keir Starmer's riding a tiger here, trying to manage this Donald Trump relationship because, you know, at the moment, maybe it's strategically brilliant, but if in the end, in a few weeks' time, we've still got massive tariffs and we're seeing layoffs in steel workers, for example, the Canadians were tough, the Europeans were tough, and Keir Starmer wasn't, then suddenly, as Kate says, it starts to look like, well, maybe he was just being walked all over. I mean, so at what point, how does he manage this?
I just don't think... I don't personally think a trade war and a tariff war is in our interest.
But we're in a trade war.
We're in one. Yeah, but we've got to...
I mean, we've got to
escalate it. And I think
you can't say, when they invade, you can't say that's not in our interest.
No. But I happened to be in Canada.
They've got 25% tariffs on British steel.
When I happened to be in Canada when he announced the tariff, and the idea that the Canadians are going to retaliate, they're a twelfth the size of the US. The idea that this is an equal fight, I think is absurd.
But the Canadians have just slapped £20 billion worth of tariffs back onto American goods, including computers, sporting equipment and cast iron.
But they have, the trade war isn't going to work when you're
if Donald Trump taxes all our exports, we just say...
Well, I mean, it's not always as black and white like that. I think we've had in the past, haven't we, decisions around... I think it's whiskey, our Scotch whiskey going to the US.
Well, we did that last time because the European Union did it and we were kind of part of that, but we're not anymore.
Well,
no, that was afterwards. I mean, I was part of that deal. The whiskey was sort of 2020, 2021, that sort of time. We left the EU at that point.
A child education expert has said that he thinks banning smacking would be a mistake after a leading group of children's doctors called on the government to make it illegal in England.
Professor Robert Lauzilliere believes that smacking children is warranted and even beneficial when it comes to showing consequences.
So is smacking ever OK? Or is it wrong for parents to use it as a way to discipline their children? It's against the law in Wales and Scotland, not in England. Joining us now to discuss this is writer and broadcaster Sally Jones, who thinks smacking can be used as a last resort, and broadcaster Lewis Oakley, who says smacking is never the answer. So, first of all, Sally, did you smack children in your care?
I have 2 kids, and I maybe smacked them 3 times in total throughout their childhoods.
Can you remember the moments?
I can. One time when my daughter was dancing around, she'd let slip of my hand and she was saying, "I'm running in the street, Mummy." And there were cars flashing past and I'd got horrible visions of, you know, her flattened by some lorry. And I grabbed her back onto the pavement and I thought, I've got to do something to tell her that she cannot do this. I gave her a very quick smack on the top of the legs, 1 smack, not very hard, but she was so shocked that it sort of...
Did you feel...
Now, that's interesting because that is exactly what the professor says is the circumstances.
Yes.
So if kids aren't listening, they need to feel a consequence. And that's basically what you did, because you saw the potential danger. Your child didn't. So you tried to give her a consequence that she could feel.
I also saw one of my friends whose child was dancing along the top of a wall with a long drop on the one side. She would not come down. He grabbed her, gave her a quick smack and said, "Don't ever do that again." And the shock, when a child's not used to being smacked, and it's a very rare thing, they catch their breath. It's not even that it's the pain, it's the...
Lewis?
Wow.
What was wrong with just pulling the child down and explaining at their level that is really dangerous? Stop it. I think this is the problem.
I think when you've explained and explained, you can do all the naughty step and sending people to their room you like. At some stage, there will be a moment at which the child is beyond explanation.
Were you in control?
Agree with him,
Were you in control at that moment? Did you regret it afterwards?
No, I didn't. I felt calm, but I was terrified that she was going to be run over.
So, Lewis, you say no still, though, don't you?
No. I think parents now, especially in the modern world, we've got more tools in the toolbox. I have 2 young kids, so a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I have never even got close to the point of needing to smack them. I have enough tools of threatening their toys, counting down, you know, just my tone sometimes is enough to stop it. It never needs to get to the point of physical violence. And I think that, you know, as parents, we're supposed to be setting an example. If we're setting an example that if someone really doesn't listen to you, smack them. You can't then be annoyed when the school calls and says, you know, little Sarah's smacks little Helen.
I think you may have two absolute angels from heaven.
Oh, they're trying. No, they're trying, and they
but
fight.
I think 5, 6, 7, when a child gets really defiant and difficult, or they're doing something dangerous, or they're doing something so breathtakingly rude and horrible, like bullying. I mean, I was lucky neither of mine bullied, but if they had done, and I'd caught them at it, I think that would have been a swift
The thing
smack.
is, though, is what Lewis just said, which is, you know, you're saying this is a red line.
Yes.
And I'm showing you this is a red line by smacking you. What happens then if the child thinks, I feel a red line here in school, I don't want that toy taken off me by little Johnny, or I don't like the way I'm being spoken to, and they then smack?
I think you've got to explain to them, and they must know
but you're
that
back
your
to
relationship
now.
Your
What we're talking about is smacking.
But your relationship to the child is totally different from their relationship to appear at school that they might want to smack if they're feeling a bit cross with them.
Yeah, but what Lewis is saying is that's the lesson you're teaching them, that when something is wrong, you smack.
Yeah, we're supposed to be setting an example. If you're setting the example that's the go-to recourse, I'm sorry, but also the other question is, so your child runs into the road, you've grabbed them back, you smack them, said don't do it again. What happens if they run into the road again? Are you going to smack them harder?
It clearly didn't work. Again, it never happened again. I mean, obviously, some children are particularly tough and durable when you do start that.
But gone to the most
normally, if they're not used to being smacked, one smack, the shock of it will actually teach them a lesson.
Look, I know that this story's come back, so we've got one expert that said, oh, actually, it's totally fine. But we have a body of evidence, decades of research that has said, look, this is really not good. It's not the way to do things. And I don't think it's the way we should be doing things in a civilised society.
But it's also that successive governments... I was a cabinet minister.
Yep.
We didn't change the law. In England...
So you were given the opportunity to look at this in your role?
In England, look, you cannot hit a child to hurt them or mark them. You can't cause harm, but you are allowed in law, in the Children's Act, to use reasonable force. And we haven't changed the law in England, and we have in Scotland and Wales. I mean, I think the interesting question for me is, I know you would never smack your children, but would you go further and say that no parent should ever do that, that you would change the law? Are you going to...
So this is a tricky one. I would say, look, yes, I think it should be banned. However, I would strongly caveat that with, because I don't want to be a hypocrite, is I don't like the state telling me how to parent. You know, on principle, I don't really like it. But at the same time, children don't have a recourse. If they're being hit by their parents... And
you would agree that Sally was being reasonable, wasn't she?
No, I don't think she's being reasonable. No offence.
So she was
but, you know, if my child ran into the road, I would grab them back and shout at them and tell them, you do not do that.
Yeah.
And there would be consequence. And I also think a smack is a very... You know, it's a short, sharp shock in the moment. But actually, I think something more sustained. You know, if I took away my daughter's Thomas the Tank Engine for a day, I mean, that would just be trauma she would never recover from.
I think you can do both. You can do both. I had been reasoning with this child for about 5 minutes. Come on, hold mummy's hand. No, you don't want to go in the road, etc. It got beyond a joke.
It's always a really important test, this. If you're going to change a law, you're going to change a law and you believe in the change, you have to be willing to act. So if you were in the street, if the laws change and you're in the street and Sally smacks her child on the street, you have to be willing to talk to her, call the police and say you've broken the law.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. You know, speeding is illegal. I don't call the police every time I see someone doing 32 in a 30, but the law is there so it can be enforced if it needs to. So the parent can't say to the police, oh, no, it was just a smack, that's legal, you know, it's fine. But actually the police can say, actually, no, we've seen bruise, or whatever it is, that there is law to be enforced. It doesn't mean that I have to be dogging
Bruising is illegal now. Bruising is illegal now.
But I think we've had a bit too much gentle parenting, a bit too gentle, where children are led to believe that they're the absolute centre of the universe. And I think they've got to be made just occasionally, when they're really going mad, to understand that they're part of a wider whole.
But in Scotland and Wales, this has been banned. And I haven't seen that, you know, the 5-year-olds have taken over and they've had to surrender to 5-year-olds.
Right, well, it's a fascinating debate. Thank you to both of you. We did ask you to get involved as well. And you think smacking... ask you if you think smacking is ever OK. 62% of you say yes, it is OK on your side. And 38% of you said no. So that's where we stand so far.
But I bet a lot of the 62% who say yes wouldn't smack their children.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
2 years ago, 9-year-old Aditya Shankar made medical history as the very first child in the UK to receive a very special kidney transplant that doesn't require lifelong medication.
There you are, look, and first had a bone marrow transplant from her mum, which changed her immune system to match her mum's. So when Aditi later received her kidney, her body wouldn't reject it. Yeah, you're giving your mum a hug, weren't you, for that? Now she's determined to raise awareness about the importance of living donors. And as you can see, Aditi joins us alongside her mother, Divya, and father, Uday. Good to see all of you this morning. Aditi, you're looking great this morning.
Yeah.
You are, aren't you? We've both got a bit of a purple vibe going on in our dresses.
I love your hairbands are so cool.
They're really good. You've got yourself very organised for so early in the morning. So how are you doing then? It's been a couple of years now, hasn't it?
I've been doing great.
Do you feel better?
Yes.
What can you do now that was a bit of a struggle before?
Well, like, I can go to school.
Great.
That's good.
I can go on different trips, and I can do swimming.
Wow, you sound like you're doing loads. And what's your favourite subject at school?
Math.
Oh,
Math.
goodness me, she's a clever one. She's a clever one.
And what's your favourite stroke at swimming?
I like doing front stroke and the back stroke.
Front stroke. And how about the butterfly?
Like, like I like doing a star float.
Oh,
well, it sounds like you are just flying and everything is going brilliantly. And, of course, your mum and dad are here with you, been through it. It must be so brilliant to see... Well, she's always had fantastic smiles, hasn't she? When we last met, you were full of giggles. But it's actually also, you know, such a positive thing for her health-wise, isn't it?
Big change.
Big change, yes.
So what do you see?
She's completely almost fine now, yes. She going as normal as before, yes. So she was doing dialysis nearly 6 days in a week, actually, yes.
Yeah, started with 6 days to start with, and then...
Yeah.
I mean, when we say 6 days, whole day taken away.
And is it really right, the dialysis and the medication, is it all gone? Is there some medication?
After the transplant, she's not doing any dialysis.
Just a very basic...
That's kind of a miracle, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say nothing short of
a miracle little girl.
Yeah, no, you don't need to giggle, you are. We all love you. So, you know, for people that haven't gone through it, there's so much that being on dialysis prevents you doing. It is not as good as a functioning kidney, is it?
Absolutely.
So you never feel as well.
Yeah.
And the practicalities of having to have this done meant so much of Aditi's life, which you can now fill with all the fun stuff you're talking about, swimming, was taken up with that.
Totally taken away. And a lot of activities, or even not just the person, I mean, Aditi, or anyone who's undergoing that patch, but the entire family surrounding it. So, I mean, visiting loved ones back home is taken away. Even a chance of taking a short break from home is taken away because for now, those 3 years, nothing.
Was it a hard decision for the two of you to make? Because, you know, your lovely daughter, this had never happened before. Did you have to be persuaded? Did it feel risky?
Not at all, to be honest. On the other hand, we were hoping that either one of us would be the
We both were tested, actually.
Tested, and we were hoping either of us would be the choice to start with. If possible, both, rather. Yeah. But, I mean, that's what we wanted to be honest with you.
So the crucial thing that made this work for you is the notion of living donors. We know that donation of all forms is the gift of life for so many people, isn't it? And the gift of having a better life to someone else. So for people that perhaps don't think about the living donor thing, what would you say to them?
It's such a grateful feeling, actually, after your donation. I feel like that because you are giving a gift of life. It's new life you're giving to someone. I don't know how I can put into words how much happy I'm going through, actually, yes.
Was there any downside for you? Has it made any difference to your life?
Oh, it was a straightforward, actually, because I want to do it because I want to save her life, actually.
Of course.
Yes, so it was straightforward. If I want to do it today, I was ready for that, actually. Gosh. So
your mum's pretty special, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
When you sign, just before the transplant, they get you to sign saying, OK, if at all for some reason,
if you want to move away,
transplant is not going to happen, not going through to the choice of the person, what would you like us to do with the kidney that is harvested? So there are options, and one of the clear option is, would you like it to be gifted to someone else?
I see.
And that actually gives goosebumps and saying, that's the right choice to do. If it didn't go through for the right person,
of course,
it should be given to someone else.
Are most living donors giving, say, a kidney to a family member or a close friend? Is that the normal thing?
Normal thing.
Because you're saying tick the box to say, if there's some reason it can't work...
Give to someone, of course, that's the thing. I mean, I know of someone who's gifted to their staff member.
Right.
I definitely know of someone there. Because last year that is, we attended transplant games.
Transplant games, yeah.
It happens every year. So,
see, I want to know from Aditya, look, the thing which is really striking to me is how much you love coming on the television.
Oh. Yeah.
And you are very, very excited. And as well as your swimming and your maths and your schoolwork, what is your ambition going to be? What is your career going to be in the future?
You are only 9, so we're not going to hold you to it.
I'm wondering whether you're going to be a television presenter. Are you going to be the next Kate Garraway?
Yeah.
Or even better. Try and be even better than me, Aditi. Do you fancy doing a bit of TV in the future?
Yeah.
No, I can imagine that. We also know that you are very creative as well as being brilliant at maths.
Yeah.
We've heard that you're a bit crafty. You love to colour.
Yeah.
Things like that. And you love all sorts of things. And we also heard you're a bit of a fan of Bluey.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you love about Bluey? That's your favourite cartoon show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
everything about it. She remembers the whole episodes.
Really?
She could narrate the whole episode.
All of them.
You love all of them. You love all of them.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? We may have a little gift for you here. You've already had a lovely gift from your mum, which is the important one. So this is just a little one.
Goodness.
To say how pleased we are to meet you. Have a little look. See what's in there.
Thank you. Wow.
We're hoping that is Bluey. Are we right?
And let's get to what we've got in here to help you.
Oh,
Pencils and colouring.
Pencils and some
Look at
Bluey colouring book.
Look at all those.
Oh, my goodness, there's
Lots of blank pages there.
for you to be creative with and lots of stickers.
She loves
Every
colours.
Tuesday is an art day.
She likes colouring.
Oh.
Yellow.
How exciting is all that? Isn't that amazing?
You're going to make me cry. You're so excited by this. It's lovely.
Oh, my God.
Well, look, you have been brilliant, Didi. You've got all of this. You're so brave and you've cheered us all up this morning. And also you and your mum and your dad have such an important message as well. So thank you very much indeed.
Aditi, listen.
Aditi, I think you're going to be a big TV star.
Yes.
And you'll have seen, Kate and me have been reading. Do you see on that screen here?
Oh.
Can you read out what it says on there?
Yes.
Can you read that?
It's quite a long way away.
Lauren is here at 9 o'clock. What have you got this morning?
Aditi, that was the best ever.
Give her the John
that was far better than Kate and Ed or Susanna. That was astonishing. You're a smashing kid.
Sir Keir Starmer says he wants to reshape the British state and will outline what he calls a refocus on Labour's plan for change in a major speech today.
But the Prime Minister is facing what could be the biggest party rebellion of his leadership as Labour MPs hit back at proposed welfare cuts. Science and Technology Secretary Peter Kyle is live in Westminster for us this morning. We will come to the announcement of AI and public spending savings in a second. But just on the story that our correspondent Louisa James has been reporting about concerns about those welfare proposals. I know they've not been set out yet. The Prime Minister said the welfare system is not working. Lots of people need to be helped into work. I think the question which is worrying a lot of our viewers is if you are someone with an extreme disability, that you can never work, and you're currently getting personal independence payments, it's been reported that they could be frozen or cut. And I just wanted to know, because I know you can't tell us the announcement, is there any Labour principle which could justify, at the moment, taking money away from people with extreme disabilities who can't work?
Thanks for having me on again, Ed. You said it yourself, the announcement will be made to Parliament in the near future by Liz Kendall, who is working really hard on these reforms. Of course, the Labour government takes care of people who need that help, and that help takes many different forms. You know, we have 1 in 8 young people who are not in education, training or work, and that figure has been going up under the Tories as part of our inheritance. We have 9 million people who are out of the economy, who are economically inactive. And most of those people are able to work and they want to work and they are not fulfilling their potential. And we are the Labour Party. The Labour Party, by very definition, is there to respect the dignity of work and help people into work when they can. So the system isn't working for people themselves who want to work. The system isn't working for the country. And the system certainly is too dysfunctional in the way that government has to dispense it. So it needs modernising, it needs reforming, and it needs to work better for those people who depend on this support. And it certainly needs to work better for people who are taxpayers, because it is becoming economically unsustainable too. OK, I think we can be reassured by what you have said. I mean, we've had viewers all week saying the Labour government took away the winter fuel allowance from poorer pensioners, they cut international development aid. Surely they aren't going to hit people with extreme disabilities. I know ITV at the weekend reported the plan was to freeze or cut personal independent payments. From what you're saying, a Labour government, its principle is to support the most vulnerable, and therefore those Labour backbench fears there could be a cut in disability benefits for people who can't work, that is not on the table. That is not what you, as a Labour Cabinet Minister, could support. What I'm here in saying is that these proposals will be set out. But this is a government that has been forced to take some very difficult decisions in order to rebuild the foundations upon which our economy and society is built because of the inheritance that we had. We've taken those tough decisions, but we are also investing in the future by building 1.5 million new houses, by investing in the R&D and the technologies of the future where the high growth and the jobs of the future will be. We are doing, and also introducing yesterday the legislation for workers' rights. I feel so we are introducing the positive changes our country needs, whilst making the tough decisions to get our finances in order. But when it comes to welfare, get those people back into work who can. The problem is that if you are disabled and unable to work, long-term things like house building is no comfort. That you fear it's already very difficult to manage on the support anyway for those people, and they're struggling to do that anyway. And the idea that it might be less, or in reality less, if it's frozen, is terrifying, not in the long term or even the medium short term. It's frightening and keeping them awake at night. That's the problem. Kate, I totally understand that people have, because of what we have inherited, are in economic challenge. Our economy isn't growing. We have high taxation because of our inheritance, and we're trying to fix the foundation. So what I'm trying to say is that we are taking the tough decisions. We are very, very mindful, because of the values and principles we bring into public life, about those people who need support. I hope you understand, and I hope your viewers understand, because I do deeply respect your viewers, that I am not the person making this announcement, and the announcement won't be made until the near future. But I'm trying to reassure people about what we're trying to do about rebuilding our country and making a better country into the future, as well as the challenges we have before us today. Well, look, sorry. I felt more reassured by your answer when you were saying that this is not something a Labour government would ever want to do. And then you started telling us about your difficult choices, and you've just chosen to increase defence spending. And you've had a big increase in the National Health Service. The public finances are under pressure. You wouldn't want to be a Labour government choosing to get the public finances sorted out and to invest in defence by cutting benefits for people with extreme disabilities, would you? That just wouldn't be a Labour thing to do. The priority number one of a government is to keep people safe. And we are living in a deeply unstable world. People of all incomes, of all backgrounds, in all parts of the United Kingdom want this government to invest in the defence of our nation. And that is what that's what we've done. Now, we've done it by again cutting the aid budget. But look, I was an aid worker over the course of a decade. When I went to university, it was to study international development. So these are issues I care very deeply about. But what the international community needs from our aid budget is stability. And what we've inherited is increases one year, cuts the next year. We need to rebuild in the our aid support in the same way we need to rebuild other parts of our economy and society, so it is fit for the future and people can depend on the progress we make, because what we inherited was instability. We are bringing stability to our politics, to our society, and to the way we are running the country.
Let's talk about the state and reshaping the state and the use of AI in it. And the things, none of these things are unrelated, are they? Which is what you want to talk about this morning. I suppose the questions are, because I think we could all see the benefits that AI can bring in the right situations. It's just that, are we confident it's the right AI and the right situation? We've got terrible histories, aren't we, of things that were brought into the NHS which cost millions and never really worked. And also a concern of, is this just another way to cut jobs?
I completely agree that you've explained the challenges I face really well. There are two sets of risks. There is the risk that we use technology and we get it wrong, or that we implement it too fast and don't do the testing. There is the other risk that we don't do anything and government and our public services just fall further and further and further behind the rest of the world out there and the rest of the economy, people interacting with travel and banking and commerce sectors via their smartphones and via the web and other ways, is simply unrecognisable to the way they interact with government and the public services. So, for example, DVLA opens 45,000 envelopes every day. HMRC answers the phone 100,000 times every day. And somebody in my office in government who's fantastically now pregnant and had a baby, she went through this process of having the maternity card sent through Royal Mail. She had to fill it out by hand, including her national insurance number, carry it with her throughout her pregnancy, so it'd be updated manually on the card by all the checkups she had. And she was told that if she didn't have the card with her when she went into labour, then the maternity ward wouldn't have access to her medical records for the pregnancy. This is no way to do government in the 2020s.
Of course,
we are letting
and I think
people
we all agree
down.
with that. The problem is in the same sentence we're hearing statements like, we want a state that protects and works for working people. And that thing, well, no one's going to argue with that. That sounds like a great idea. But at the same time, there's the spectre that part of this process and part of this reshaping, disabled people might see a freeze on their benefits. It becomes hard to trust.
Well, making a more efficient and effective and cost-effective government is part of solving the fundamental challenges that our country faces. Now, I and my department have identified £45 billion worth of savings that are there just by moving to a more digitally enabled set of government and reforming the way we do things. Now, that sounds like an enormous number because it is an enormous number, but that means that we have to start this process now because we need to, there are ways of saving money that are delivering better services for people, and the people who are working in the civil service, they need to embrace the positive change that we're putting forward. This is a positive agenda, and it would be better to work in a more efficient and effective service. More than half of government transactions are analogue. We need to modernise government because it has to serve people better.
I know we're almost out of time. Look, it's very easy to make cuts by sacking people. You're talking about something big and ambitious, which is long-term savings from better public services by using AI. You know very well that for that to actually happen, for our National Health Service, in our schools, in our police, at our borders, it requires, in the short term, a big investment in technology and hardware to deliver these savings. Have you got a guarantee from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, that there will be more money going into AI and tech and capital investment in this spending review? Because, you know, to be honest, the idea you can make short-term savings from this is just not true, is it?
Well, there will be some short-term savings, but you're right, we will need to invest in this, and the Chancellor found it to increase the R&D budget for my department by 8.5%, and that includes some of the digital transition work we're doing, and the spending review that we're going through at the moment is prioritising those projects that will lead to a digital transformation. There is an enormous amount that we can do as a government right now, and we're setting about doing that now. So look, Ed, when I came into office just 7 months ago and I was appointed, I asked my department how long it would take to get a digital driving licence. They said 5 years. We worked really closely with the civil service. I explained that 5 years just simply wasn't going to happen. Now, this year, in June, we will announce the gov.uk app, putting government into people's hands up and down the country. Shortly afterwards, the digital wallet. And then by the end of this year, the digital driving licence will go live for every citizen who needs it. That's 50 million people with provisional driving licences and driving licences. Now, all of that work started the week the Labour government came into power, and it will be delivered for the app within 11 months. These are things we can do and we will do, and it will put power into people's hands because suddenly public services and government will be in people's hands physically. They will start to wrap around people rather than people always having to wrap around the services and fit into them. This is a giant step forward, and it's going to happen 11 months after this Labour government came into power, and it shows just what we can do, and this is just the start.
Peter Kyle, more investment in the spending review for long-term savings, but hopefully they'll come more quickly, these changes. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.